My dear friends, in a world that rewards imitation and punishes authenticity, I come to remind you, God did not create carbon copies. He made originals, and you are one of them. The only way, I repeat, the only way you can be successful in life is to be yourself. Not a mask, not a shadow, not a performance, but the person God knit together in the silence of your mother's womb. You were not made for the fleeting spotlight of public approval. You were crafted, formed, and breathed into existence for something infinitely higher, a divine purpose. Before a single human hand touched you, before a single voice ever praised or criticized you, God had already spoken a word over your life. That word was intention, that word was meaning, that word was love. Public approval is like perfume, sweet for a moment, but it fades quickly. And if you inhale too deeply, it intoxicates you. You begin to live for the crowd, for their cheers, for their validation, but you forget that crowds are fickle. The same voices that cry Hosanna on Sunday can cry crucify him by Friday. And if your purpose is rooted in their applause, then your identity will crumble with their silence. But divine purpose is different. It is eternal. It does not sway with the trends of culture or the tides of opinion. It is not concerned with your popularity, your follower count, or the praise of men. It is concerned with your faithfulness, your willingness to become who God created you to be, even if the world misunderstands you, even if you are alone, even if it costs you something. Look at the saints, the prophets, the martyrs, the true heroes of history. They were never the darlings of society. They were misunderstood, mocked, rejected, even killed, not because they conformed, but because they refused to, because they chose purpose over popularity, truth over applause, obedience over comfort. They knew that being approved by God was far more valuable than being accepted by the world. Success in this life is not about how many people agree with you, it's about whether you are living in agreement with your Creator. When you chase public approval, you lose yourself in 1,000 opinions. But when you embrace divine purpose, you find the one voice that matters, the voice of God whispering, "Well done, my child." So stop looking outward for your worth. Stop measuring your value by likes, titles, or trends. The God who made galaxies also made you on purpose, with purpose, for a purpose. And no human approval can add to that. No human rejection can take it away. Be who God created you to be, not who the world pressures you to become. That is where true success lies. A tree does not strive to become a star, nor does a river wish to become a mountain. Each element in creation glorifies the Creator simply by fulfilling its nature, by being what it is meant to be. The oak grows tall not by mimicking the rose, but by rooting itself deeply in the ground it was planted in, drawing strength from its own design. So it is with the human soul. You will never become truly great by trying to be someone else. The seed of greatness lies within you, but it can only grow in the soil of authenticity. The tragedy of our age is that people are often taught to perform rather than to become. They are coached to impress rather than to express what is true. We craft polished versions of ourselves for social platforms, for interviews, for social gatherings, all the while burying the very parts of us that contain our genius. But the world is not moved by performances. It is moved by presence, and presence only comes from a soul unafraid to be honest. Authenticity does not mean perfection. In fact, it acknowledges imperfection. It says, "Here I am, flawed, in progress, still becoming but real." And there is something profoundly powerful in that. Because when you embrace your truest self, your story, your scars, your strengths, your silence, you stop striving for borrowed greatness and begin to uncover the greatness already planted within you. The authentic self is not shaped by comparison but by conviction. It listens to a deeper voice, the voice of God that speaks not through noise, but through stillness. That voice does not ask you to outperform others. It invites you to outgrow your fear, to stop hiding behind masks, to stop measuring yourself against the standards of a world that does not know your name, your story, or your cross. It is in authenticity that creativity is born. It is in authenticity that relationships become meaningful. It is in authenticity that vocations are discovered. No one has ever changed the world by being a replica. They changed it by being a revelation, a clear, courageous expression of who God made them to be. So do not fear being different, my friend. Fear being disconnected from your soul. For when you are truly yourself, you are finally free. And in that freedom, greatness grows not as the world defines it, but as heaven designed it. In every human heart lies a calling, a sacred, unique invitation to become what God created you to be. This calling is not loud. It does not shout over the noise of the world. It whispers, it nudges. It speaks in the quiet places of your soul. But the moment you begin to compare your life with another's, that whisper becomes harder to hear. Comparison is not just a distraction, it is a distortion. It blinds you to your gifts, deafens you to your calling, and eventually convinces you that what God placed inside you is not enough. The problem with comparison is that it always begins with a lie. The lie that someone else's success diminishes your worth. The lie that someone else's gifts make yours irrelevant. The lie that if you don't look like them, speak like them, succeed like them, then you must not be valuable. But God does not create duplicates. He creates individuals. He forms each soul with a unique fingerprint of grace. There has never been and never will be another you. That means your journey, your trials, your talents, and even your weaknesses are part of a divine design that no one else can fulfill. Yet, when we compare, we begin to live like echoes instead of voices. We chase someone else's assignment, and in doing so, we abandon our own. The musician who tries to paint, the teacher who tries to act, the speaker who tries to write like another, each risks losing the fire that burns in their own calling, not because their calling is weak, but because they have stopped tending to it. The saints never looked sideways. They looked upward and inward. Saint Francis did not envy kings. He embraced poverty. Saint Therese did not desire a grand mission field. She found holiness in the hidden corners of a convent. Saint Joseph never preached a single sermon, yet he protected the Savior of the world. Each fulfilled their vocation by surrendering to what was theirs, not what belonged to another, and so it is with you. Your life will never make sense when lived as a comparison. It will only make sense when lived as a response to the call that is uniquely yours. That call may not come with applause. It may not be visible. It may not even be understood by others, but it will be true. And in the end, success is not measured by how closely you resembled someone else's path, but by how faithfully you walked your own. Do not let comparison rob you of your joy, your clarity, or your purpose. Every time you look to someone else's lane, you risk stepping out of your own. And your lane is where your vocation lives, where God's will meets your willingness. So walk in it, guard it, cherish it, and trust that what God has asked you to be is not just enough, it is irreplaceable. There is a temptation in the human heart to hide what is broken. We cover our scars with smiles, bury our pain beneath ambition, and convince ourselves that only the polished parts of us are worthy to be seen, to be loved, or to be used by God. But my dear friends, hear this truth clearly. Your wounds are not liabilities, they are testimonies. They are not marks of shame, they are marks of grace. In every wound there is a story, and in every story surrendered to God there is power, the power to heal others, the power to break chains, the power to say to the suffering, "You are not alone." God never wastes pain. He redeems it. In fact, some of the greatest miracles begin at the point of our greatest weakness, because it is not through our strength that His glory is most clearly seen, it is through our brokenness. Consider this. The resurrected Christ, victorious over sin and death, did not erase His scars. He kept them. Why? Because the wounds told the story. The wounds said, "This is what love looks like. This is what redemption cost. This is how far I was willing to go for you." And if the Son of God did not hide His scars, why should we? The world often teaches that success is about image being untouchable, invincible, unbreakable. But heaven teaches something far deeper, that holiness is found not in having it all together, but in handing over what's been torn apart. That true witness is not in perfection, but in authenticity. It is not the flawless who move hearts, it is the honest. Some of the most powerful sermons are not spoken from pulpits, but from pain. The person who has battled depression and still chooses joy. The one who lost everything and still chooses to trust. The one who was betrayed and still chooses to forgive. These are the witnesses that change lives, not because they are unbroken, but because they are redeemed. When you allow God into your wounds, truly invite Him, in those very places of sorrow become sacred. They become altars where grace meets pain and resurrection follows crucifixion. And others who are walking through their own darkness will look at your scars and see hope, not because you avoided suffering, but because you survived it, and something in you still sings. The enemy wants you to believe that your story is too messy, your past too painful, your failures too many. But God looks at your wounds and says, "This, too, I can use." He does not need your mask. He needs your heart. And when you offer Him your heart in all its rawness and reality, He does not turn away. He takes it, blesses it, and sends you out as a living testimony of mercy. So do not hide your wounds. Do not be ashamed of your journey. For what you see as a mark of pain, God sees as a door of purpose. Your healing may be the very thing that sets someone else free. Your scars may be the signpost that leads someone else home, and your witness, rooted in your woundedness, may be the most beautiful gift you ever give to this world. Let God write glory into your story, even in the chapters you'd rather skip. Because when you live unashamed of your scars, you don't just tell the world about grace, you show it. And in that, my friend, you become a true light in the darkness. There is something deep within the human soul that longs to be seen, to be known, and to be loved. And yet, we often put on masks, layers of image and performance, thinking we must become someone else in order to be worthy. We wear the mask of confidence when we are crumbling inside. We project perfection when we are riddled with fear. We shift to fit in, to be admired, to avoid rejection. But there is a quiet tragedy in all of this. The more we pretend, the further we drift from the very grace we need. Because, simply put, God cannot bless who you pretend to be. God is truth, and His blessings rest upon what is true. When we come to Him with an image, a false self, we are not giving Him the person He created. We are giving Him a costume stitched together by fear, pride, or insecurity. And the Lord, in His great mercy, waits, not because He does not desire to bless us, but because He will not anoint a mask. He will only pour His grace into the vessel He formed with His own hands, the real you. This is not because God is harsh, but because He is holy. He desires relationship, not performance, intimacy, not illusion. When Adam and Eve sinned, the first thing they did was hide, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. They covered themselves, ashamed of what had been exposed, and yet God did not come into the garden looking for who they pretended to be. He came asking, "Where are you?" Not "Where is the version of you you've created?" but "Where is the real you, the one I breathed life into?" That question still echoes today. Where are you? Not the version you show at work. Not the version you curate online. Not the version you think others will accept. But the one underneath, the one God already knows, already sees, and already loves. There is no need to pretend before a God who formed your every cell. He knows the doubts you carry behind your smile. He knows the battles you fight in the silence of your mind. He knows the longing, the weariness, the questions you're too afraid to speak. And still, He waits, not for your performance, but for your presence. When you live pretending to be someone else, you place yourself outside the stream of God's best for your life. You may gain admiration, opportunities, even applause, but you will miss peace. Because the soul cannot rest in an identity it knows is false. And success that requires you to hide yourself will always come at the cost of your joy. God does not bless the image of you. He blesses you. And He can only transform what you surrender. He can only heal what you reveal. He can only use what you place in His hands. That means coming to Him not as the person you think He wants, but as the person you truly are, broken, struggling, hopeful, honest. And oh, how He loves that honesty. The tax collector who beat his chest and cried, "Have mercy on me, a sinner," walked away justified, while the Pharisee, perfect in image, left unchanged. Why? Because one brought the truth and the other brought a mask. If you want the fullness of God's blessing, you must offer Him the fullness of your truth. The good, the bad, the beautiful, and the messy. Because when you stop pretending, you make room for grace. You make room for healing. You make room for a divine encounter that reaches into the real depths of who you are and says, "Yes, even here, especially here, I love you, and I have more for you." You don't need to impress God. You need to invite Him, and the only door He will walk through is the door of truth. So take off the mask, lay down the act, come as you are, because only when you are truly yourself can you truly be free, and only when you are free can you truly be blessed. The world will try to remake you in its image, but you, my dear soul, are already made in God's image. To be yourself is not a rebellion, it is an act of obedience. And in that obedience, you will find your mission, your peace, and yes, your success. So be brave, be honest. Be you, because the only way to win in life is not to play someone else's game, but to walk the path God has written just for you. Life is God's question to you. Your authentic self is the answer. Amen.